Okay.
Decided.
In which case we are ready. Hello and welcome to the AppSpy live stream. My name is James Gilmore. Above me is Peter Willington.
Hi.
And today we're going to be playing some of The Wolf Among Us, which is Telltale's follow-up to The Walking Dead. In my opinion, an overlooked follow-up that should really be seen to be believed. What we're going to do is we're going to play through the series as it carries on. We've got up to episode 2 at the moment in terms of the release. So we're going to start from the beginning, play the first 2 episodes over the course of the next couple of weeks, and then as they add more episodes, we will screen them to you. Now, if you haven't seen it, you might be worried about things like spoilers. That's understandable. There will be some spoilers in this. We're going to play through the game. There's no way around it, okay? So if you want to see what the game looks like, that's cool. We're obviously going to be talking over it, and we'll put the subtitles on the screen so that you can sort of read the text, because we are going to be chattering over it a little bit. And obviously there are going to be different outcomes depending on what you do. So even if you watch this playthrough, you won't have seen everything the game has to offer. As you can see from the screen right now, it's saying that different things will happen depending on where you play, much like The Walking Dead. Now, we're doing this because I don't think enough people have played this game, frankly. Everyone's played The Walking Dead at this point, apart from you, Peter.
Yeah, I've not played it because I'm scared of zombies.
Because you're scared of zombies. But I don't think enough people sat down and had a go at this. And it's a shame because it's got all the strengths of The Walking Dead. It's the same kind of character decision choice stuff. It's quite gritty in a weird sort of way. But also, it's a very colourful world. In my opinion, it's better looking than The Walking Dead. I mean,
Some strong words there.
Well, Walking Dead looks great. The art style is very strong, but it's all muted greys and greens and browns, and it looks very dingy. Understandably, because of the subject matter. That's fine. But you can already see here from the intro of this is a very vibrant, stylized world. Now, it's because it's been pulled from comics. This is a Vertigo comic series that's been adapted into this game.
What have Vertigo done before that I would know of?
I've got absolutely no idea. I haven't followed the series a great deal.
Okay.
The thing that's actually based on, it wasn't called The Wolf Among Us, it was called the Fables series.
Right.
And if you're not up on the comic book knowledge, then it's basically a series of books that takes fairy tales and then anthropomorphizes them into human beings who live in this city. So essentially your protagonist, who we can see right now on the screen, this is Big B Wolf. As in Big B Wolf, as in big bad. Yeah, you see what they did here? So it's kind of he's a humanistic interpretation of that character. And over the course of the adventure, you'll be introduced to more and more characters who, have a fairy tale connotation. Here is Mr. Toad. We'll let him have a chat.
All right, have a chat. Now, obviously, James is playing the game. I am in the chat room looking at awesome things. Looking at everybody come in, saying hello to the regulars that come into our chat room. Hello to all of you, you know who you are. And so if you have any questions or if you have any comments or anything like that, then do put them in the chat room and I will relay them to James. Maybe you've got some more comic book knowledge. I've got no idea about this Vertigo stuff. Maybe you can give us a good schooling on that stuff. And the other person that's in our chat room is Caffeine Dreamer. That's our community manager. That's Danny. And he'll be on hand to chat as well. So, okay, so these decisions you're making.
Yep.
Now, Walking Dead is on a timer, isn't it?
It is. You have a limited amount of time in which to answer, and this operates on the same, I think, as far as I remember. You get 4 choices, usually, of different options you can say, like now, and as you can see, it's counting down. I can say, I can be harsh, I can be nice. I'll say, I don't make the rules. I'm being quite nice there and saying, it's not my fault. Whereas I could tell him he's a dick and make him do it, and then something might happen as a consequence of that. You've probably played The Walking Dead, you know how it goes. But I think there was a lot of people who played The Walking Dead who came over from obviously loving the TV series. And that drew them towards the video game, and then it got a lot of hype for being very good. In terms of this, much fewer people have read those Fables comics, and I don't think as much of an audience came over. But I really quite like what they've done with it. It's this. Let me see. What have I opted to? I've opted for silence there because silence is a valid option. It reminds you. If you don't say anything, that's a choice in and of itself. So I didn't say anything that time.
So what do you? I'm trying to get my head around that concept. So what does the character do? Just kind of think to themselves?
Well, yeah,
or?
it's the idea that if you're talking to someone, you just sit there in silence. They're going to go, all right then, and assume you're ignoring them or intimidating them or something like that. It's a sort of valid bluffing response in a conversation. At the moment, I'm talking to Mr. Toad. He's one of the only people in this city who looks like the character he's representing. So the fact that they all look like human beings, it's called a glamour. It's like a magic spell that makes them appear human in this city. Whereas Toad, he's not wearing his glamour, so he's just looking like a frog, like you would. And he's kind of a sort of slightly geezerish landlord who's probably up to no good, we reckon. He's a bit of a cockney. And he's looking after this place, and he's got his little kid, his little baby Toad son, who's looking after as well. Bigby Wolf is kind of a private eye detective sort of character. And the whole thing is played with a very film noir-ish tone. Now, this is the very beginning of my interactions with it, in terms of moving the character around. I can either tap, like I've just done there, to interact with objects. So you hit hotspots and your character will wander towards it and investigate. And that's pretty much how it's best done on iPad. You used to be able to drag, and I can do that. I'm dragging my finger around the screen now, and you can use it just to walk around freeform. But if you want to actually interact with an object, you just tap, they wander over to it. Very sort of streamlined.
One of the things that I've noticed already is a lot of naughty language.
Yeah, I should probably say at this point, I probably should have said earlier, really, but that it is kind of X-rated, this. There's a lot of swearing going on.
I sort of thought that, well, maybe this is me sort of like showing, maybe this is me showing my age or something, but I kind of thought that fairy tales and comic books, to a greater extent, were sort of for kids.
Yeah, but that's kind of what this is. It's turning your expectations on their heads. So you don't expect them to be callous, but this is the kind of the sweary fairy tale, as I think I called it in the review.
Sweary fairy tale.
Exactly, that's what it should be. Now I'm going to get into a conversation here. I'm going to say, right, everyone calm down, because I'm going to try and be diplomatic. And I just got headbutted for being diplomatic. So there's now going to be some quick time event stuff going on. I'm probably going to get into a ruck here. I'm gonna threaten him because he headbutted me, and I pretty much know this is going to end in a fight anyway. So I might as well come off hard in the process. Yeah. And you can remember this is the woodcutter, who I think is involved in, I forget which, the Red Riding Hood story maybe. I can't remember. And I'm the wolf, and he wants to kill me badly. Whoa! Yeah, of course. I have now. We're in a fight, so I tapped that hotspot. I got him, and I've tapped that other hotspot as well. I can choose a place to go. Let's go to the sink, and I've smashed him into the sink. He's grabbed a knife, a switchblade, and I'm going to swipe down. That's let me dodge. I'm going to swipe across. That's dodged again. Swipe the other way. Dodge. Swipe down. I'm going to hit that hotspot and grab him. He's smashed into the table there. Nice. Kicking his ass.
Nice.
Lots of sorts of swearing. I pick another point. I'm going to push him towards the bed. Ooh, need him in the stomach. And now I'm going to batter him in the face repeatedly. This is, I agree, not quite the fairy tale that I remember, but I'm going to smash his head on the table. I'm going to do that again. Why not? I'm going to grab a bottle.
Oh, what are you doing to him?
Clock him with it. This is pretty nasty. He's getting stressed. He's retaliated with a toaster.
Why can't everyone be friends?
No, not in this fairy tale, son. This doesn't end well at all. Actually, this is one of the things I quite like about it, is because fairy tales at their core, at their heart, are quite violent, nasty things. If you think of any fairy tale, they're often really dark stories about nasty things happening and people dying. Like, inherently, it's about witches being burned and children being potentially eaten and wolves trying to munch little girls and killing grandmas. It's nasty stuff. And that's, like, kind of, they've chosen to reflect it here by actually going, all right, then we'll do it. We'll do swearing, we'll do violence.
Now that you talk about it, like, fairy tales are a bit grim. Like Hansel and Gretel is.
Yeah, that's what it's
now
done.
I think about it. Oh.
There's a really weird one, which is Jack and Jill. You know, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack came down, broke his crown. Jill came tumbling after. That is about adultery.
What?
Yeah, no, so seriously, so the idea is that Jack and Jill are adulterers, right? They go up the hill. No, seriously, this is the interpretation, the Freudian interpretation of that nursery rhyme. It's a parable about not being adulterous. So I'm going to talk to Snow White here. So they go up the hill. They are both adulterers. Hills are always supposed to represent a place you shouldn't be. They've gone to get water. Water is always sex. In these kind of representations, water always indicates sex. So that's what's going on there. And then as a consequence, Jack falls down, smashes his skull open, and Jill falls down and dies as well. That's the consequence of their actions.
So they fell over because they were like...
Well, no, the falling over in the water, this is all metaphorical. The idea is they ran off and were adulterous, and as a result, a very bad thing happened to them. That's...
right.
And that's, like, genuinely the root of a lot of fairy tales. They're supposed to be warnings against doing things.
Do you think there was a real person called Jack and a real person called Jill?
I doubt it somehow. But that's the underlying metaphors behind it. And so this game, in some ways, by taking it and making the fairy tale characters coarse and violent and everything, it kind of makes sense. It fits with the mythology from which it came. And I think that's what the comic book was originally trying to do as well. Now, going back to the game for a second, like I say, we're going to be talking over it, but we have put up the subtitles if you want to follow. And obviously, you don't necessarily want it all spoiled for you. Right, what am I going to do? I'm going to totally throw him out, because this is fun.
Cool.
He's about to have a bit of a set to with him.
Really did sock it to him.
Here it comes, here it comes. Smash. Nice. There we go, and that's the beginning of The Wolf Among Us. That sets the tone. Well, I played through this for review originally and enjoyed it. Again, warning if you've just tuned in, obviously there are spoilers coming because we're playing through it. But like I say, we're not just going to sit in silence and do it, because that's, you could just watch a playthrough video for that. But the subtitles are there if you want to follow it. So now I appear to have smashed Toad's car with my mighty wolfy body. Bad luck, Toad. Shall I apologise, or shall I tell him to go away?
No,
I'll ask him
tell him to go away.
Going to ask him about his insurance.
Tell him he should have had a star, because that would have given his car... It's a different Toad, isn't it?
That's a different...
Yeah.
No.
It's a different... yeah, if you are just joining us, then we are playing The Wolf Among Us. James is playing The Wolf Among Us. I'm watching him play it, and I'm getting horrified by the amount of bloodshed and naughty words. I am looking at the chat room, and so is community manager Danny, Caffeine Dreamer. So if you do have any questions at all about the game, then pop them in there, and I will relay them to James. So obviously we've late title card sequence.
I'm stabbing this guy in the eyes.
Yeah.
Because that's what fairy tales are all about.
Yeah.
This is kind of a tappy thing. I think I'm getting throttled. I have to keep tapping this line in the middle. Keep tapping.
Why do we always end up hurting people's eyes in these videos?
Oh, hello. It's on. Oh. But I've just been rescued by... I always forget if she's Red Riding Hood or Snow White. I should have been paying more attention at the beginning. But I was about to go and completely wolf out for a second. I was going to transform into the bad wolf. But luckily this lassie decided to stick an axe in the guy's head.
Good.
Which was effective.
So why would it be bad that the wolf would come out of you?
Well, the whole idea of this Fabletown in which they live, they're sort of supposed to stay incognito. The guy was hassling Toad earlier for walking around without his glamour up, without his disguise, essentially, looking like a human being. So, they're all supposed to coexist peacefully, and if you start wandering around like a giant wolf eating people, then that's a problem, and you get kicked out of the town, presumably. In a lot of cases, though, these guys have these kind of immortal power, so as you can see, he's still alive. I'm going to totally let her crush his head, because I played it quite nicely the first time through, and I'm quite tempted to see what happens when you do mean things to people here.
I think you're do you go Renegade or Paragon usually?
No, I go Paragon, because playing as Renegade, for example in Mass Effect, or if on any game which has got a binary morality system, playing as a bad guy is exhausting. I don't know if you find this, but if you have to play unpleasantly, then you're just constantly being nasty to people in the game, and you're seeing these negative consequences of your actions. Like in BioShock, do you pick up the girls, do you harvest them, or do you cure them? Do you set them free? And if you keep harvesting them, you just start to feel like a real jerk. I'm going to light the cigarette in a slightly flirty way, because, I'm cool. Yeah. And I promote smoking, apparently. We don't promote smoking, incidentally, but this game does. This is another thing. It's like same thing with The Walking Dead, I suppose. They get away with quite a lot of unpleasant violence and dark tones. In most games, you wouldn't, and TV series, to be honest, you're not allowed to smoke now on TV because it promotes a bad image, and that's quite right.
Yeah, fair enough.
But this is all about anti-heroes. This is all about the nursery rhymes being kind of messed up characters who swear and are unpleasant to one another.
Silly things to one another. Is this one of your favourite Telltale games, would you say?
Well, yeah. I was not that much of a Telltale fan prior to The Walking Dead. They kind of nailed it with that franchise, obviously. They got the subject matter right. Prior to that, they did things like the Back to the Future game, and I'm a huge Back to the Future fan, but that didn't really work for me. You had the Sam and Max games, which, again, it's humor-based stuff. I didn't find it that funny. It didn't really work for me. And then The Walking Dead came along, and I think it's better than the TV series. Like, I watched the first season of The Walking Dead, and I got pretty bored after a while. And I understand the second season doesn't really pick up much. I'm going to keep questioning her while I'm doing it. And I know loads of people love it, but I actually find it, in terms of characters, not particularly interesting. I don't think it's that much of that great a series. Whereas the game was far more engrossing, in my opinion, than the TV series, because it puts you in the centre of it. And because they introduced that dynamic between Clementine and the guy Lee that doesn't exist in the series. I mean, there are kids involved, but there was a really strong connection. It was a really clever dynamic, and that drew you through the game. And this idea that you were actually protecting this young child who was your ward, that was really compelling. And when she was threatened, you felt genuinely like worried that she was going to get taken out or killed or something. And that you don't get that feeling watching the TV series, I don't think.
Yeah, you see, I've barely played any of them. I played, I think, maybe the first hour of Strong Bad's Cool Game for Attractive People, and maybe 20 minutes of Season 3's opening for Sam & Max, and bits and pieces. I saw Jurassic Park running, and I just kind of thought to myself, ugh.
Yeah, but the Jurassic Park game was even, by the early Telltale standards, was an atrocity of a game. It was the worst, which was a huge shame because we saw the license and got all excited. But yeah, this was the first game to come out of that post-Walking Dead time period. I didn't click anything there. Whoops, I should pay more attention. And it kind of showed. Obviously, the success of The Walking Dead meant that the team could probably get a huge injection of funding. They could refocus their efforts on other stuff, maybe increase the size of the team, maybe attract a new caliber of voice acting talent. So everything from here on out, I suspect, will be of an at least equally high caliber, if not greater. So this was the first experiment, The Wolf Among Us. They have announced this year that you're going to get a Game of Thrones Game of Thrones series based on the TV series that you can interact with in the same way as The Walking Dead. And you're also going to get a Borderlands series called Tales from the Borderlands.
Oh, yes, I remember this. Yeah, that seems... because, coming back to The Wolf Among Us for a second, the visuals here look a lot like a Borderlands.
In terms of they look a little bit cel-shaded and like bright colours. I mean, that's true. The Walking Dead, like we say, it's all very grey and muted. This is very bright and lots of neon pinks and purples and stuff. And I suppose Borderlands has a lot of bright colours in it in some ways. There's certainly the art style will suit it. Here comes the credit scroll. The art style will suit the Borderlands thing. I don't know how they're going to make it work in terms of the story. I didn't really play Borderlands for its amazing story, because it was just a grind fest. I liked Borderlands, incidentally, but I can see how The Walking Dead translates to a series. I can see how this comic book translates into a series. That makes sense, of choices and stuff. And again, the Game of Thrones. I can see how Game of Thrones can translate as an episodic TV series in which you make decisions. Borderlands is a bit more of a stretch.
It's an RPG shooter.
Yeah, and I mean, it's got some bold characters. It's got some big, larger-than-life characters, but it's really about shooting. Not about conversation trees and stuff. So I'm interested to see what they do with that. Could be really good. I don't know.
It could be, I suppose. So first of all, we've just had a very late title card for The Wolf Among Us, which is quite a stylish thing, but also just something that happens all of the time now in games. It's just late title card for Impact.
I still quite like it.
I still quite like it as well.
It works as an opening little chapter, a prologue.
How far do you feel like we're into this? Because if you're just joining us now, we're playing The Wolf Among Us. I'm checking out the chat room that we've got going on here on Twitch, and James is playing the game through. What we're going to be doing is playing it hour by hour over the next couple of weeks, next few weeks, I suppose. So how far, now that we've seen the titles, how far do you feel like we're into this episode? Are we?
I'm not far. I mean, if you play it through in one sitting, you probably do it like an hour and a half, maybe something like that. But we're obviously taking it relatively. I'd say we're taking it slowly, but you have to react quickly because you can't just wait on these screens. There is a timer. So I'm going to tell I've heard a sound in the trees. I'm going to tell them to come on out and see who it is. I obviously know who it is. And you might guess by the colour of her shirt who it is. Colour of her jacket, sorry. She might look like Red Riding Hood, but it's not. This is Beauty of Beauty and the Beast, who's probably one of the few people who's actually a person, not a character already.
Oh, I suppose she was a person in the Fable, wasn't she?
Yeah. And same thing with Snow White. Snow White turns up as well. They just call her Snow. But there are a few human characters, but then you'll also get people like Bigby Wolf here, who's the big bad wolf, and you'll get the frog who we encountered, Mr. Toad from Wind in the Willows. That's what I liked about this in some ways, is the mashup. It's not just the grim fairy tales. You've got fairy tales from all over the place. Like Wind in the Willows is a completely separate entity from all the grim fairy tales, but they're all existing in the same universe. It's a funny little mashup, fusion of different ideas and different characters, and it's funny to see how they all interact. Now, I've chosen to promise to do what she says here, I think she says to stay away from something, I forget. Don't pry. And I've gone, alright then. That may or may not be the right decision, because that might come up to kick me in the ass later on. She appreciates my help now, but is she up to no good, maybe? We don't know. You end up playing the role of essentially detective in this. It becomes a kind of murder mystery game, which again, that's very different in tone from what The Walking Dead is, which is very much about survival and having to make awkward decisions to stay alive. This is much more about making decisions to try and establish allegiances with different characters in order to further your investigation. So you're making the same kind of conversational choices, but you're doing it for a different reason, and obviously in a very different universe too. Right. Now, obviously you might have played the game on, for example, PC or something. The controls here are different. I can just drag my finger around the screen and that moves him, and if I want to interact with something, I can tap the hotspots. There's my suit of armour. Soft keys appear. I can look at it using the eye, which is what I'm doing there. He says something about dust. That's grand. And if I tap it again, I can wander up and actually touch it and see if there's anything going on. Here there's nothing, it's just a suit of armour, but in some instances you'll be able to pick up objects and stuff like that. So the guard at the desk here is sleeping. I'm just taking a look at him, make sure he's asleep. I'm going to touch it again and talk to him. Maybe see if I can wake him up.
Hey, you awake?
He is not awake and is staying asleep. So there you go. I'm going to move over here to the postal bit where I can pick up my mail. Let's see if there's anything for him.
Been a while since I got any mail.
It's been a while since he's got any. He opens it up and nothing.
Day in a row.
Nobody cares for this guy. Right, there's a message board up here. Have a look at the building directory. This tells us who's living there. Mr. and Mrs. Beast, we should notice. There's a lot of different fairy tale characters listed on that board. And there's something on the floor as well. It's my name tags fallen off.
Ugh.
That's why I've got no
That's
mail.
shoddy upkeep.
I know, right? Poor show, poor show. Okay, let's go over here to the lift, the elevator. See if we can get upstairs. I have called it and wait for them to turn up. I want to see if I can pick that up. No, I can't. You just get the same line again. Here we go. It's open now.
This seems very adventure gamey.
It is.
I mean, I know it's an adventure game, but it feels a lot like, I don't know. Maybe it's because, again, maybe this is an old-fashioned sort of a thing, but I always envisage point-and-click adventures in 2D, and this to me seems a lot more sort of, I don't know, like simply by going 3D, it makes it a bit more action adventure-y, but it's clearly not. Like, it's obviously not, even though there's like fighting and all that sort of thing. It's much closer to an Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, it seems very adventure-y. Does it move the adventure genre on at all since like Broken Sword or anything like that?
I wouldn't say it's not quite, because there are fewer puzzles. It's not like a puzzle-oriented game. It's all about the story and the decisions that you make, and that changes how the story unravels. So it's not quite the same thing. You'll find with adventure games that it's a lot about doing weird puzzles and sticking things in slots and all that. There's not so much of that here. What I've done there, for example, is in the lift, I chose to lie to Beast. She asked me not to tell him what she was doing, and I went, all right then. And when he asked me, have you seen Beauty? I said no, and I lied explicitly to him. That's going to have a consequence later on. Whether it's the right thing to do or not remains to be seen, but yeah, we'll see what happens later on. I'm now back at my somewhat skanky apartment flat thing, which is just apparently all lit in pink from the outside. But I really like the look of this. This is what I mean. After spending 5 episodes of The Walking Dead looking at this kind of murky grey colour, it was so nice to see something that was boom, an explosion of kind of bright colours. Yeah, and something that was, it's still dark and it's still a bit coarse, but it's not quite as grim as The Walking Dead.
It looks like the colour palette is very sort of 80s cult movie favourite sort of a thing.
Yeah, it's quite Blade Runner in as much as it's all blacks and pinks and neon lights and stuff.
It's also got a bit of Drive. Is it called Drive? Is that the
it
movie?
is called Drive, that's right.
Yeah.
The Nicholas Winding Refn movie. Right, I'm going to have a look at my files. Bluebeard's file. Was that Bluebeard, I assume? Bluebeard the pirate or something? Whom I never trusted. Check me out. And as I'm going through this, I'm unlocking books of Fables, which is kind of like a little logbook. I presume if I can, just press pause here, you can access the Book of Fables. So there you go, Book of Fables. Let me just flash that up. And there you go. Here's a list of all the characters that I have accessed at the moment. So if I were to go into, for example, let's go into Beauty, and it gives you a little rundown of who she is, lived in an enchanted castle, forced to flee, blah, 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 blah. So you can get background history about all of the characters. Kind of like case notes that you would do in an investigation. So that sort of supports that aspect of the game. And now I'm going to look at Chinese food.
Yes. What is it?
I like staring at noodles.
Yeah, staring at noodles. That's the name of my autobiography.
Is it really? You know, a very specific life that you've led.
Yeah.
Let's turn the fan on.
So, did you say? I don't think we said anything. But is this? It's based on the world of the graphic novels.
Whoa. Yes,
that's
right.
Actually, the graphic novels were like beat for beat.
I haven't read it. I've seen pages from it because I did a comparison, but I haven't actually read it. So I don't know if it's the same story beat for beat, or whether it's something entirely different. Now, I've just found there's a pig sleeping on my chair. An actual pig. So I can either look at him, talk to him, or touch him. That sounded bad. I mean, like prod him and try and wake him up, presumably.
Sure.
So he's asleep. Let's talk to him. Let's see if I can wake him up. He's called Colin.
Yes, Colin.
Colin the pig. Exactly. Right, that's it. Sorry, he needs to get woken up. I'm going to prod the porky git.
So we are about 30 minutes into our live stream of The Wolf Among Us here on Twitch. And if you're joining us at the moment, then jump into the chat room and ask some questions. If you know, James and I are absolutely awful with comic book knowledge, it turns out, or at least certainly of Fables. So if you've read the series or if you've read too much of anything by Vertigo, which is the publisher, then do let us know what we're missing out on in the actual comic books.
Absolutely. And like I say, we could just sit in silence and play through the game, but that sort of defeats the object of it.
Do you want to do that for 30 seconds just to kind of show what that would be like? Or
does everyone look? Right.
Thanks. Couple thousand more of these.
some guy saying some awesome stuff on Twitter.
No way.
Yeah, it's me.
Did you see Coronation Street last night?
It was right,
Yeah.
yeah. Marjorie? Is she in it? I don't watch Coronation Street.
No, can't even play that.
Oh, you know what Telltale should do? They should do Coronation Street.
You reckon that would catch on with the intended demographic?
Well, it would catch fire in northern UK.
For me.
That's a very specific place to go
I mean,
for.
yeah, clearly.
Although
But,
it arguably equally as grim and terrifying as The Walking Dead. So you might be onto a winner there.
that would be amazing. Do you know what? As soon as we finish with this stream, I'm gonna send Telltale an email, and I'm gonna say, guys,
Copyright AppSpy.com.
Copyright AppSpy.
Naturally.
Yep.
I'm going to have a sip of this here drink. So I'm arguing with this pig. He's in my flat. He's a kind of a mate of mine, Colin the pig, who got transformed into a pig, I think against his will. I can't remember now. It's been a while. He does look nice and eerie though. He's got a very humanistic face. I'm going to play hard. Better to be feared than loved.
We've got a question from MHR Digital Arts. James, have you played this on PC?
I have not played this on PC. I have played The Walking Dead on PC
And
though.
that uses the same engine, doesn't
Yep.
it?
So it's essentially kind of the same thing.
So is it smoother? Is it less smooth on PC? Does it play better on PC? Does it?
Well,
how does it?
Arguably, having played all of them, I've also played it on Xbox 360 as well. Having played the console, the PC, and the thing, it runs smoothest on PC if you happen to have a PC, a decent one that can obviously handle it. The controls are kind of handy to have on the Xbox to some degree, but they work just as well as a touchscreen. Point-and-click adventures work brilliantly on touchscreens because they've got hotspots and you can just tap the right thing, and like when you're choosing which response you want to make, you can just actively point at it rather than having to move a hub or anything with a thumbstick. It's actually better on touchscreen in that sense. There are some running issues. You'll notice occasionally on this stream when things get busy, there'll be the occasional stutter. So it'll drop a few frames and you'll see a bit of jerking going on. That's actually not exclusive to the iPad or the iOS versions. I found that quite a lot in the Xbox 360 version. Despite the success of these games and everything, despite the fact they're not exactly graphically intensive, they look good, but there's not like a billion particle explosions going on.
Yeah.
So you'd think it would run smooth as butter. They don't, weirdly. So PC is the optimal experience in terms of like perfect smoothness, provided you've got a decent one. But it runs perfectly well on iOS. Like I've played through them now on this as well, and it doesn't really suffer at all. And like I say, the point and click aspect of it works. And it's also a nice thing, I think, because it's a kind of story as much as it is a game. You just sort of pop your headphones in and sit back on the sofa and just play through, and it's a really nice experience to do that, to get lost in the little world. It's interactive, because tablet devices especially and phones have always been very good at being interactive storybooks or reading ebooks or something like that, and this is like one of those things kind of come alive with a gaming aspect to it. So I think it suits the iPad and the iPhone really well. Oh, he looks all sad piggy. He's pleading for my drink now. He wants booze. He's an wino pig.
What do you think would happen if you got a pig drunk?
We're about to find out.
All right.
I'm gonna give him my drink.
Because bulls in china shops, they wreck everything.
That's true.
Elephants in rooms, they are like awkward and no one's talking about them.
And no one wants to acknowledge them. Whereas pigs in pubs?
Pigs in pubs.
I think they're a comedy. I think everyone looks at them and points and laughs when they eventually fall over. In this case, Bigby's gone and fallen asleep in his chair and left the piggy drinking. But now he's awoken with a start because it's on. Whatever it is. He's heard something outside the room, so I'm going to drag and move him round to the hotspot. The door. Oh, he's adjusting his tie. Maybe he thinks it's someone attractive. Is it? He has found someone attractive. That's what he was clearly expecting.
Come with me.
I think this, ladies and gentlemen, is Snow. Yep. That's Snow White. And you can tell that because she's got little snowflakes on her collar of her shirt there. You see? That's very good.
Very clever. So from everything that I've seen in this stream so far,
We have to
it looks like he's got a bit of a thing for her.
I think they go way back, him and
Right.
Snow. When you think it would be like him and Red Riding Hood, because of their sort of
Their thing.
intimate knowledge of one another through their fairy tale. They're part of the same story, but no, there's a lot of crossover, and yeah, it appears to be him and Snow who are the closest, at least at first. Yeah. So we're going to head into the elevator now and carry on. She's found something that she needs to share with him, and she's going to explain it to him on the way. She looks concerned.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? You would look concerned.
There's there's the jacket of a security officer on the floor. The security officer, we presume, who we saw earlier, who is now no longer sleeping at his desk. The plot thickens. Right, now we move into another aspect of it. At least I think we will.
Okay.
Because it's a investigation, crime noir, film noir sort of thing, crime investigation, there's some forensic stuff that goes on. So if you played LA Noire, for example, and whenever you encountered a murder scene, there we go. Decapitated head, anyone? Whenever you encounter a murder scene, you have to like do some forensic stuff and look at the victim and search for clues. There's a bit of that in this as well.
She's not a Mundy.
And we've just found the decapitated head of the girl whom I rescued earlier.
I thought I knew everyone in Fables.
I'm going to say she was just a girl. She was essentially a prostitute.
Just,
Exactly. And now she's got no head. And she also looks like she has something sticking out of her mouth. I just saw it in the clip there. So the woodsman was the one who attacked her initially. And that's that bit we saw at the beginning of the stream. So you might initially think, oh, well, he had an axe. She's been found with no head. So could be him. But that might be a red herring. You don't know. Snow's found her and dragged me down to have a look. So I'm now questioning her to find out what she knows and how it got there and stuff. So it depends on which questions I ask, leading to, depends on which answers I get.
So you're going to ask different questions, and how does this? Because we were talking earlier that there's multiple branching paths. How do your questions in this thing how do they branch off and make different endings for the story? Like, can you ask a different question, then because of that small thing you'll get a different outcome, or is it generally based on, well, you generally asked this type of question and therefore you get this kind of outcome?
It does actually matter. I think not to quite the degree they would like to say it does. I don't think you wind up with completely different endings. You do pretty much get to the same ending, but the journey by which you get there and the characters you align yourself with along the way changes. So they do have an impact, but you roughly wind up at, I think, the same place-ish. You can play it through a couple of times and have different outcomes. I've already seen a couple of different things so far, just playing through this, because I'm playing a bit more like a git than I did before. I played quite nicely, and now I'm not. But I'm just investigating her head. I found that ticket that was in her mouth. We can have a little look at that later. Here we go. Let's open the mouth. I spotted it, and here we go. Ew. It's like a long ribbony thing. And it's the girl's ribbon, but there's a key tied to the end of it with a symbol on it, which looks like a kind of crescent moon with three insignias that look like from like a royal house or something. It's probably a little in joke, and it'll turn up in the Game of Thrones series. That's what it looks like. It looks like a sigil.
Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine a Wolf Among Us and Game of Thrones crossover?
Well, they've already got plenty of fantasy stuff in there. There be dragons, so they wouldn't be completely out of this world, I suppose. Although everyone would just die, obviously, before the end of the first episode, or they'd kill off all the major characters unexpectedly. Spoilers. Right, I'm going to do a little bit more investigation before I leave. I'm going to talk to Snow a bit more about this. Because whenever they say, do you want to investigate a bit more in adventure games, as we all know, you do investigate more. Because that's the game saying, you might have missed something, might want to carry on.
Do you want to see this?
Yeah, have a little look.
Someone's suggesting a crossover. Master Hayward suggests that it would be a direwolf among us.
Very good. There's a member of the House of Stark there, quite clearly. So,
I wish I got these references, but
Where are you going?
Game of Thrones is all right. It's not all that.
I watched one episode of it and then got through about 10 minutes of the next one and just went, Old days were hard.
I did the same thing, mostly because people had gone, "Oh no, it's amazing! You got to see it. It's the best thing ever." And I watched it, and I was like, "Yeah, it's all right." I mean, it's like got lots of violence and nudity and stuff, which is, you know, a thing people are drawn to, obviously. But I didn't. People were saying it was reinventing fantasy,
Yeah, exactly.
and I was watching it, going, "It's not really, is it?
It's like a Hollywood producer rocked up and went, "Let's make Lord of the Rings, but extreme."
Well, I mean, they come from the books, and there is. I approve of the way that they treat their main characters, as in they will just kill them off willy-nilly without you expecting it, and that's bold. I think that's good storytelling because you never quite know what's going to happen. It puts you like on the back foot. But I didn't think the actual story was as gripping as all that. The world was better than the plot, in my opinion. But whatever. I'm sure it'll translate pretty well onto the iPad and onto the computer.
I mean, I know it's got its fans, and and clearly, like, I'm in the minority. Like, I'm not a huge fan of them, but clearly, a huge number of people very much enjoy them. As Catherine Dreamer points out, violence and nudity.
Well, yes,
quite
we
a lot
covered
of it.
that pretty much, but yeah, absolutely. There's people are drawn to it, and it's very good looking. It's a beautifully shot show. It's got a really decent budget, and if you watch it in high definition, it's you know, it's eye candy. It's a cracking looking show. It's fun to watch in that regard, but you know, it took me a while to get into it and really enjoy it. And even then, I wouldn't rank it up there with a you know, a Breaking Bad or even things like True Detective, which was on recently. In fact, this has more in common with True Detective. Because True Detective was the crime investigation. It has a slightly occult undertone to it, and it's a pretty bleak outlook. This has quite a lot in common with that. That would be an interesting Telltale game, the True Detective.
So obviously we've finished with the decapitated lady now.
We're now moving on in. I've just brushed off this guy who's told me to not go anywhere, and I'm now going to go in to talk to Crane, Ichabod Crane, of the. I always forget which fairy tale it is, but it's the one with the headless horseman. He investigates the headless horseman. Old school scientist guy from the 1800s or something. What was the Tim Burton movie he was in? Sleepy Hollow.
Is that what it is?
That's the Ichabod Crane character, yes, and he's kind of I think the head of our investigations. He's like the police chief in the context of this world. So she's getting lip from him, and I'm going to take the blame because I'm just that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Not really. Big B's that kind of guy.
I love how unironed your shirt is.
Do you like that? That's class. That's probably an accurate reflection of my own personal shirts.
Yeah.
You can't see it because this is black, though.
I've not ironed this one. I feel bad. I don't iron t-shirts. I just think to myself, what bother?
Disgust me. I used to not, but I do now.
Why bother ironing a t-shirt? Like, no one's going to see it. No one's going to see it. I know somebody who genuinely irons their pants. And I just think to
Which,
myself,
if you're an American listener, is underwear,
underwear. They're underwear.
not their trousers.
They're scanties. And I just think to myself, like, you're trying too hard at life generally. If that's where you're at, I haven't got the time. I'd rather just sit down. Like, we can say and play something. I'd rather just sit down
And do nothing.
than do nothing than do that.
Okay, so Ichabod's taken a slightly reserved approach to the news that someone's just been decapitated. He's trying to play it down, tell her that don't get anyone scared. So it looks like he's leaning towards maybe no covering it up or something, maybe, possibly. Don't know. We shall see. He's getting all arsey and having a go at Snow anyway, and Big B gets all defensive at that because he probably likes her a bit.
Do your job, Sheriff.
Do I tell him to fuck off? I do.
I think you do.
Is he going to say it? Go on. Oh, she stopped him. Snow stopped me saying it. I had to swear because they're swearing in this. I might as well.
Yeah,
Incidentally.
exactly. If you get the chance to, then fair enough. We are 3/4 of an hour into our playthrough with The Wolf Among Us on iPad. We're playing on this on iPad. Obviously, it's also available on PC, Mac, Xbox 360, PS3,
Yep, the whole lot,
all
I think.
sorts. Everything. Your washer dryer, that'll play it. Microwave.
Social watch.
James is playing the game at the moment, and I am looking at the lovely chat that's going on at the moment. If you've got any questions about the game or you've got any insight into the game, then do let us know, and I will pass it along to James. And obviously, Caffeine Dreamer, our community guy, he's in there as well, and he can also answer any other questions. One of the things that we have got that isn't quite related to The Wolf Among Us, but it's probably worth us talking about it while we're while you're saying nasty things to a.
I'm looking at a flying monkey creature now.
Oh well, okay, well, fair enough. One of those things is. Basically trying to get some information about what this Tuesday stream is and what potentially we might be doing in the future with it and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I guess I can kind of answer some of that.
Sure, go for it.
So essentially, Tuesdays we're kind of doing bits and pieces where we're going to be playing through a game completely. That's the idea. So we've chosen The Wolf Among Us. We're going to play both of the episodes that are out, but obviously we're going to do them in hour-long chunks so that we don't burn you guys out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to play it weekly every Tuesday, and then obviously Wednesday and Friday we do our Wednesday is our weekly wrap-up where we play all of the games that are just about to come out for iOS so that you guys can see exactly what's coming out, what you should be spending your money on and what you should be spending your time on. And then Fridays we do bigger sort of in-depth looks for an hour at a specific game. As to the actual games...
We'll do the new releases. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. We'll do the new releases. So the Wednesday show is called Eye on the App Store. That's all the new releases. Gives you 24 hours in advance. The Friday show will be picking one of the new releases and taking a closer look. So that's probably what we're going to call it. The Tuesday ones, these are going to be geared towards maybe older games that take a long time to play through. So, for example, this is an episodic game that takes a while. And then we're looking into doing something maybe more RPG-based. Maybe a very popular RPG that you might know that perhaps rhymes with Final Fantasy, perhaps, maybe. But we're going to save that in a couple of episodes in. We're just testing things out at the moment, but there's more to come.
Absolutely. So, absolutely, if you want to chuck us your suggestions, that sort of thing, then that's absolutely brilliant. We do, obviously, there's two of us looking at the chat at the moment, and so games that you want to see in the future, then do please let us know. And yes, we do know Roller Coaster Tycoon. We will get round to it.
Oh, really? Roller Coaster
promise.
Tycoon, is it?
We like it's such a big game that we will have to cover it eventually. But that will be sort of based on whenever it is that we can get access to it. For the time being, we're playing The Wolf Among Us. You've been shining lamps, looking at nice things.
I'm going to talk to the mirror now. You know the magic mirror that is usually on the wall.
Yeah.
Here he is.
Yeah.
Here he is. He's popped up. He's got mad green stuff, and I'm now swearing at him.
Have you found out? Good. I get the feeling that this game is just go up to person from legend and swear.
Yeah, but this guy rhymes, so he gets to do. He's trying to rhyme. Mirror, mirror, if you're able, let me talk about this fable. It doesn't quite work, but whatever. So he's trying to get information from the mirror in the wall, and he's going to cough up some info. I'm trying to find out about the other fables. Each of the characters are called fables. So who do I want to know about? Woodsman, Snow, or Buffkin? Buffkin's that flying monkey creature. I want to know about the Woodsman, because he's the only person who's not in the room at the moment. And he's a potential suspect, because he was the guy at the beginning who I kicked his ass. He's staggering around. Stumbles down a street, apparently. I'm trying to find out which street. But he can't show me, because apparently he's useless. Let's find out about Snow. Even though she's still in the room, we might get some more background information. She's on the phone at the moment.
Not much of a request.
I know, you smug mirror. Alright, let's look at Buffkin, which is that flying monkey creature. Who's boozing on the sly.
Down the bottle and get to work.
He's supposed to be doing research, but he is a drunken monkey. I'm going to say I don't know her name because that's the victim. The victim is this working girl who we're not entirely sure of her identity. And he says, until we know the identity, he cannot help. So we'll have to back off and move somewhere else.
Very well. Please return.
But I reckon later on in the episode, or in a few episodes' time, we might be able to come back and chase down that info. Right, Buffkin, the flying monkey creature, has returned with a whole bunch of books. And now he's crashed into the floor. Because apparently monkeys can't carry entire libraries. See, I like the little visual touches. Can you see that there's a man hanging in the background on the right-hand side of the screen? viewers. It's gone now, but there is just in the very, very distance. There's a dude just hanging from his neck. It's quite nasty, but just very small in the background. It's a nice touch.
There's a lot of detail that they've filled this world out, haven't they? It's not just a quick sort of cash grab. Telltale seems to understand what this world is and then builds that universe.
Well, that's what's nice about it, and that's why The Walking Dead worked, which is that they took it quite seriously, and they didn't make some kind of cheap knockoff which made fun of the TV series or parodied it. They played it very, very straight, very, very serious. Like, no, people are going to die, and you should care about it. And that's interesting. And this doesn't have the same emotional connection, I don't think, that you got with that first season of The Walking Dead, because you were so invested in looking after Clementine. There's nothing like that here. This is more of an adventure, of an investigation. But it's still a fantastic world to walk around and experience. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, I don't think half as many people will have looked at this compared to the number of people who played The Walking Dead. And that's a shame, because I think it does have quite a lot of value in it. It's never going to be as popular, but it's interesting.
Why do you think people haven't gone towards this, but they did go towards...
It's just the popularity of the brand. The Walking Dead is so big that anyone's going to play a Walking Dead video game because loads of people love the series. Whereas this appeals to a far more niche audience. But I think it's been done with no less care and no less attention. I think it's just as interesting a world to explore. It obviously depends on your personal tastes. It's not going to appeal to everybody. But
I don't like zombies. I would rather play this.
Yes, I know you're basically a tremendous physical coward. So... have no interest in watching. He doesn't watch horror movies. He hasn't seen Alien. We've covered this already. It's ridiculous. So he hasn't done The Walking Dead or any of the good games with zombies in. Oh, I say any of the good games with zombies in. Every game has zombies in now. And it's really annoying. And that, incidentally, the internet, whoever's listening, that needs to stop. Like, right now.
All the zombies in all the games.
That moment when I discovered that not Left 4 Dead, that the most recent game from the Uncharted guys, Naughty Dog, The Last of Us, when I was like, because I was very excited for the next one because I liked Uncharted, despite the fact that he's a chirpy, annoyingly chirpy, genocidal maniac. They're very fun adventure games. They're good games. And when they said they were doing something new and dark, I was like, brilliant! And then they revealed it was a zombie thing. They don't call them zombies, they're called clickers, but they are zombies, obviously. When I found that, I was like, oh no, another zombie game. We don't need any more. Leave it alone. So that's why, again, another reason I was quite like this dark fairy tale thing, which hasn't been covered enough. Like, they had a quick sort of bash at it with those new Mickey Mouse games. You know, the ones that were on the Wii?
Oh, Epic Mickey.
Yeah, Epic Mickey, where they're going to go all like, oh, it's dark Mickey. It's like the cartoon characters that you know and love, but they're all evil. And the first one was like okay, and the second one was a total washout. So this idea of a bunch of angry, narky, sweary, murdering fairy tales, I like that. I think that's kind of cool.
What's her husband's name?
So what comes... I don't know. I'm in agreement with you. I think that the zombie thing is old and dead, and well, clearly old and dead, but it should be gotten away from. But I wonder what it is that comes afterwards. Like, what's the next one? You know, what's the maybe flying monkeys?
Quite possibly.
I would be fine with that.
We can't rule them out. I'm getting involved in the story here. Funnily enough, in the movie terms, it's gone from we had a summer of sci-fi, and now ever since the Hunger Games has proved successful, generic dystopian sci-fi is the new genre. So if you notice, everything's like Divergent, which is a game that's coming out. A movie that's coming out. There are so many movies now where it's all like young children stuck in a terrible futuristic society.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games. Before that, it was Twilight, and everyone was trying to copy the Twilight thing.
Yeah.
So everyone tried to find a new old-fashioned fairy tale. They've already done the fairy tales. You see, after that they went through. They did a Red Riding Hood. There was like 2 Snow White films.
I saw one of them.
They exhausted all of that. So in a way, I suppose this is catching up to that. But this is much darker and arguably much better, much more interesting. I'm looking at like this is a nice touch. There's an old book that you discover that the monkeys dragged out for me, and it's literally it is all of the fairy tales in their original form. So you've got Bigby there against the huntsman. You've got Red Riding Hood. Snow surrounded by the dwarfs. You've got Beauty and the Beast up here. So this is the original fairy tales as they're originally found. I think here's... they're talking about Badger from The Wind and the Willows. He'll turn up at some point. You've got Ichabod Crane running from the Headless Horseman, like you see in Sleepy Hollow. It's great. I like this. It's a nod to the previous world.
I do like the way that they're sort of turning everything and putting it all into the same thing and taking from fantasy, but sort of this sort of fairy tale fantasy, and like bringing it into into a sort of more modern noirish, gritty sort of a setting. I do like that. I do think that's very entertaining. As we oh my wordly word, it's almost 6 o'clock.
It is almost time to go.
Oh my word, we're gonna have to find a really good place to leave it.
Well, I'm gonna grab these tarot cards.
Okay, grab the tarot cards
and see if they give me any informational clues. But this is probably a safe-ish place to wrap it up, because I do want to do one final thing before we go, though, and that's investigate the lamp.
Okay, investigate the lamp. So whilst we're sort of doing this, if you guys have enjoyed this, then do please make sure that you hit the follow button on Twitch, and come and leave us a comment on the AppSpy catch-up article on appspy.com. Obviously, we push this out to YouTube eventually, and you can watch it again if you ever feel like it, or indeed you can do it right here on Twitch.
Absolutely. The other thing is that we're going to try as much as we can to start streaming more regularly. So we started out doing Wednesdays and Fridays. We're kind of throwing Tuesday into the mix, and very soon we may start going every day. Exactly. So what we're trying to do is establish a set time. So it's probably going to be 5 p.m. In the evening if you're in Britain. It's going to be 9 a.m. in the morning if you're in Pacific Daylight Time, so if you're on one of the coasts, and midday, 12 p.m. if you're on the Eastern Standard, Eastern Daylight Time at the moment, coast. So it gives you, rather than having to remember what day it is or anything like that, chances are, tune in at that time, the same time you tuned in today, and we'll be there doing something. And there'll be different shows every day. We'll try and mix it up and keep it interesting and make sure we're not doing the same thing every time. We will take requests. We'll be interested to hear what you think and what you find popular. But the idea is to be a kind of repository of all the stuff that you would remotely think to find interesting in the world of iOS. If you want streams and playthroughs and interactions, come here. We'll sort it all out for you. We will be here for you. That's what it's all about. That's what
Absolutely.
fun is. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there now. We'll tidy this up next week once we've found some more information. But thank you for joining us. We will be here tomorrow. Eye on the App Store, same time. Come and see all the new games that are going to be released 24 hours before they go live. So come and check that out, and we'll tell you what's good, what isn't. You can see it for yourself and get involved. Maybe talk to the developers too. I've been James Gilmore, and that was Peter Willington.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us, and see you soon. Bye-bye.